So next up, we'll take a look at a few more methods: slice, splice, and sort. So let's focus on slice and splice. They sound very similar. We'll begin with slice. So slice is a way of getting a copy of a portion of an array, a slice of an array. So if we have an array with 10 elements in it, and I just want the first 5 or the first 3 or the last 4, whatever it is, I can use slice. So I'll show you how it works. I'm going to clear all of this. So I'll make a new array here. I'm calling it colors, and it has 8 colors in it. Roy G Biv. No, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, okay. Anyway, if I call colors.slice and I just pass in one number. If you see here, Chrome is giving me a hint. It says, well, you can pass in a start and an end, and that question mark actually means they're optional. So technically, I could pass in neither. And what this will do is make me a copy of colors. So this is a new array that looks exactly the same. We'll learn how to test that, if they're actually different or if they're the same later on. But for now, that's one thing we can do with slice. But if I just pass in a starting point, like 3, this is going to go from the index of 3, so what is that? 0, 1, 2, 3, green, to the end of the array. Or if I do colors.slice 5, it goes from index of 5, which is indigo, to the very end. Index of 1 goes from index of 1 to the end. So if I only provide a start, I can get a portion of the array until the end. So that start index to the end. For example, if I wanted the cool colors, so red, orange, yellow, I think are considered warm, so green onwards, and I wanted a new array, I would do, what's the index of green? I think it's 3, and then I can save that to an array. Let cool colors. We look at cool colors, there we are, and colors is completely unchanged. Then if I pass in a stopping point, so that's the second argument, colors.slice, let's go from index of 2 to index of 4. What does it do? Well, it starts at index of 2, which is yellow, 0, 1, 2, and it stops not at index of 4, or not including 4, but it stops up to this number. So index of 4 is blue, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it includes the start, but it does not include the stop. So I could use this. Let's say I just wanted to get the warm colors, red, orange, yellow, in a new array. How would I do that? Well, we'll start at index of 0. Where do we stop? We'll stop at index of 3, which is green. 0, 1, 2, 3. Just like that. Save that to a variable. Let warm colors. There we are, and colors is still unchanged. Now, another thing you can do is actually use a negative index. If you give it a negative index, it will start from the end of the array. So if I want the last 2 or the last 3 elements, I can do colors.slice of -3. And that gives me the last 3. If I want the last 2, -2. Now let's talk about a similar sounding method, which is splice. Splice does a little bit more. It's going to change, according to MDN, changes the contents of an array by removing or replacing existing elements and or adding new elements in place. Oh boy. So think of the term splice. Traditionally, I don't know why I said traditionally, but when we splice something outside of programming, we're inserting it, or we're sort of like joining it to something else. It's the same idea here. So we have an array in this example called months, and it's missing February. January, March, April, June. So to get February, it's also missing May, to get February between January and March, we can use splice. And the syntax is a little clunky if you're new. We need to specify a couple different things. Where we're starting our splice, and then how many things to delete, which is this number, and then optionally something to insert. So everything we do with splice operates in place. It is destructive to the original array. It doesn't make a copy. So why don't we try an example? Here's our colors array that we have. It has 7 colors. And remember with splice, we can insert things and we can remove things. So why don't we start by removing something? What we need to do is call splice. And there are 3 different things that we can pass in. The starting index, and that's required. Where are we starting the splice? Are we deleting things? If so, how many to delete? So there's a number here. It can be 0 if we don't want to delete and we just want to insert. Or if we want to delete, let's say we're deleting one thing. Let's say I want to delete indigo. We're going to go with the traditional rainbow I learned as a kid before chemistry or physics or whatever class it was, where it's just red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. So I'm going to replace violet with purple eventually, but let's do indigo. I'm going to get rid of, or let's, either one. Let's get rid of indigo. So colors.splice, what is that index? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So index of 5 is the starting point. How many do I want to delete? I'll delete 1, just like that. Okay, so it returns to me, it gives me back an array containing what I deleted. And I can delete more than one thing, which is why it gives me an array instead of just indigo. I might delete 5 things. So if we look at colors now, take a look. There's no indigo, and that wound has healed. Where indigo used to be, it has squished together, and now we have blue and then violet. So I could remove multiple things. Just as another example, do I have this days array still? Okay, if I did days.splice, starting from index 1, I want to remove 2 things. I get back this array with the 2 things I deleted, and days is mutated, it's updated to only contain Monday. All right, so let's go back to colors. So now let's see how we can insert something new. Let's insert a value between red and orange. We'll call it red, orange, I guess. Nothing crazy, or maybe dark orange, or I don't know. Red, orange is fine. So I need to do colors.splice, and then I need to specify the starting point. Where is this happening? At index of 1, right? I want it to go after red, which is index of 0. So index of 1, delete nothing. I don't want to replace something. I just want to add this in between. And then the color, or in this case, the string, red, orange. Okay? So I'm not replacing, I'm just inserting between. Let's see if it works. Let's look at colors. Red, red, orange, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. Awesome. So I can also use it to replace. I also can insert multiple things. So let's say I want to insert, I don't know, after green. What's between green and blue? Or between yellow and green? Let's do a green, yellow, and then a light green or something. Let's do 2 or 3 colors in between. So I'm going to do colors.splice, and then the index here that I want to go after. So 0, 1, 2, 3, right there, 3. So after 3, delete nothing. And I want to insert, let's go with, these are horrible color names, aren't they? Yellow, green, and then maybe forest green, which, I don't know. This seems stupid to do those 2 colors, but whatever, we're doing it. Let's look at colors, and there we go. Oh, well, I got the index wrong. We want to do it after index of 3, not at index of 3. So that's a good learning experience here. As you can see, what just happened, we did red, red, orange, orange. I was trying to go after yellow, but instead of doing index of 4, which is where I want the insertion to happen, I specified index of 3, which was the old index for yellow. But we inserted 2 new things there. So now we have index 3, 4, and then index of 5 is yellow. Anyway, it's not that common to use Splice to insert things in the middle of an array. You'll learn more, well, we'll cover more later on. It's actually not terribly efficient to update the middle of an array. It's better to update the end of an array whenever possible. Sometimes you can avoid it. And this can be useful to delete things as we've seen. And also, if I do the same thing, let's do colors.splice. And I'll just pick an index here. How about index of 2? And I'm going to delete 2 things. And then we can insert something. How about deleted? All right. So we start with red, red, orange, orange, yellow, green, blah, blah, blah. Let's look at colors now. We have red, red, orange. And then at index of 2, 2 things are missing. Orange and yellow, green have been removed, and we replace them with a single element deleted. All right, so that's enough for Splice, for now at least. Don't feel like you have to commit it all to memory. It's definitely the most complicated method we've seen. It has the most uses of the method so far, but it's also not something we necessarily use every single day. Now finally, sort, the array sort method. In the real world, we do sort arrays pretty frequently, but with what we know so far, the array sort method is kind of, I don't want to say useless, but for now, it's not going to be terribly useful because the default way that it sorts things, if you think about it, in order to sort an array, there has to be some comparison, right? If we sort numbers, are we sorting from lowest number to highest, ascending, descending? What about strings? Is it alphabetical order? What about when you have strings and numbers? Oh, geez. What about if you have things that are more complicated, like arrays of arrays? How do you sort that? Well, this is the kind of stuff we haven't really gotten to. We need to understand functions, and just as a sneak preview, we'll be writing things like this, where we pass a function into sort. But we're not there yet. So I just want to show it to you because this comes up usually when I'm teaching in person. Students start to use sort. Seems like it should work. But the default way that it sorts, if you just call array.sort with empty parentheses, it is going to convert everything into strings and then compare their UTF-16 code unit values. So these underlying code numbers basically for each string. Behind the scenes, it compares them, and that's very janky compared to other programming languages. So even if we have an array of all numbers, which we can do, let's make an array of nums. So let's call this scores. We'll have 1, how about 70? We'll have 100, 100. We'll have 2,500, and 9, and then negative 12, 0, and 34. Okay, now if I call scores.sort, you would expect, a lot of people would expect this to sort at least consistently ascending or descending numerically. But that's not what happens. Take a look at this. All right, we have our smallest number, negative 12, then 0, then 1. So far, so good. But then 100, 2,500, 34, 79. So it's basically using that first digit, right? Negative 1, 0, 1. And then 1 plus 0, or 2, and then something, 3, and then something, 7, 9. So this is not a reliable numeric sort. So this is more of a warning just around sorting. There is a way involving functions where we can write a sort and customize it and say, I want you to sort numbers ascending or descending, or I want you to sort based off of X piece of an array, or whatever it is. But we're not there yet. So that's sort, and that wraps up our basic survey of common array methods. Now, if you do look at the documentation, there are quite a few methods on MDN that we are ignoring. That does not mean that they're not used. There's really two groups. There are some that are not commonly used or not as commonly used. Things like toString. If you really wanted to, you can turn an array into a string. Sure, if that's something you need, it's here. But I didn't want to spend a lot of time talking about it, although I just did talk about it. The second camp for these methods include things like reduce, and let's do filter. These are things we will learn more of later. They require us to understand functions and to be, I won't say more skilled, but more knowledgeable around JavaScript. So just keep that in mind. We're not done with array methods. We're done with the simple ones, and we'll revisit some of these for each filter, sum, any. These are things that we'll learn. Map, I don't know how I forgot map, once we have functions under our belt. So that's coming up later. But for now, that's a good start.